They found us by accident. It was not an invasion, nor a greeting. It was a survey, one of 1,000 quiet missions launched by the proud and ancient Valoran Ascendancy, whose ships had mapped 100,000 worlds and enslaved half that number. They thought Earth was just another unremarkable blue sphere in a backwater spiral arm. A system to be catalogued, exploited, forgotten. They were wrong. The moment they entered our orbit, everything they thought they understood about the universe began to die. Captain Siratal of the Valoran scout frigate Varnis had seen dozens of primitive worlds before. She had crushed rebellions, commanded bombardments, and watched planets burn from orbit. Humans, she decided within minutes, would be no different. Their satellites were crude, their energy output laughable, their planetary defenses non-existent. But there was something odd, something she couldn't quantify. Their transmissions. They never stopped. Old radio waves. Laser pings, digital chatter, music, laughter, noise, pouring endlessly into the void, crossing each other like a web of living light. No other primitive world had ever done that. No other species broadcast itself so carelessly, so openly, as if daring the universe to listen. Her first officer, Valak, frowned as he examined the streams. "They waste power for sound songs," Sira snorted. "Primitive ritual displays? Emotional waste. Typical of carbon-based bipeds." Valak tilted his head. "Then why do they sound sad?" She ignored the question. Instead, she ordered the probe launch. The small silver spheres streaked toward the planet, scanning the surface as they fell. Dozens of nations, thousands of cities, billions of beings, all unaware that gods from the stars were watching, or so the Valorans thought. Within minutes, Sira's sensors lit up with alarms. "Captain, multiple radar locks!" Valak shouted. "Surface-based systems tracking us." Sira straightened. Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind. But there it was, a pulse of directed energy from the planet's northern hemisphere, followed by a coded burst. It wasn't an attack. It was a signal, a precise frequency, modulated to match the Varnis's scanning field. It read, in perfect Valoran script, "We see you." The bridge fell silent. Sira's eyes widened. "How?" Valak whispered. "They know our language." At that moment, something deep within humanity, something patient and ancient, awoke. For 100 years, humans had stared at the stars wondering if someone was out there. They had built telescopes, sent probes, listened to whispers in the cosmic background. And when the Valorans came, humanity did not panic. They simply watched. Every radar dish, every telescope, every satellite, all turned in unison. Governments that barely spoke to each other suddenly shared data like old friends. For the first time since the dawn of history, Earth acted as one, because they understood what it meant to be seen by something greater, and they were ready to see back. In orbit, the Varnis was shaken by another pulse, this one stronger, more direct. Sira barked, "Shields up!" But there was no weapon. The signal carried information, images, sound, words. It was a recording, a human voice, calm and steady. "To whoever is listening, this is Earth. We know you're there. We've been waiting." The bridge crew stared at the speakers as the voice continued. "We are not a threat, but we are not blind. If you mean us harm, remember this. Every empire that thought itself eternal eventually met the unknown. Don't let us be yours." Sira froze. Primitive or not, they had somehow decoded her ship's language protocols and transmitted back in less than an hour. That was impossible. Unless they'd been listening far longer than anyone realized. "2 decks below," the science officer screamed. "Captain! One of the probes! It's gone!" Sira turned sharply. "Gone? Not destroyed. Just not there." Telemetry vanished mid-transmission, as if it was erased. Moments later, a feed from another probe came online. Its camera showed the rolling deserts of a continent the locals called Africa, and a single solitary aircraft climbing toward the heavens. Not a fighter, not a warship, a plane, old, ancient by Valoran standards. But it carried a single payload, A satellite core wrapped in black shielding. It detonated in the upper atmosphere, scattering electromagnetic noise across every Valoran frequency. For a split second, every sensor aboard the Varnus went dark. When the systems came back online, every human satellite was gone, not destroyed, hidden, cloaked behind a wall of energy no one could explain. Valek whispered, "How did they—" Sierra cut him off. "Send for reinforcements. I want a war fleet here within the day." But even as the words left her mouth, she knew something wasn't right. Her ship's long-range comms stuttered. The stars outside the viewport flickered, as though the very light was bending. Then, out of the black, a shape appeared, a vessel, human in design, yet far beyond anything their planet should have been capable of. It didn't glow. It didn't hum. It simply was. A shadow of sleek metal and quiet intent. Its hull bore no insignia, no lights, no heat signature, and yet it was clearly alive. Sierra stood. "Identify that craft." Her sensor officer shook his head. "I can't. It's not reflecting light or emitting energy. It's not there. Then what are we looking at?" A voice came through the comms. Male, human, steady. "We told you. We've been waiting." Sierra's blood ran cold. "How are you transmitting on this frequency?" "You gave us the key when you arrived. We just learned how to use it." Her hands trembled. "Who are you?" A pause. "We are the ones you thought asleep." And with that, the ship vanished, not into hyperspace, not through any known drive, but simply out of existence. Every sensor reading from that moment became corrupted. The Varnus's data core melted. The crew's implants glitched for hours afterward. When it was over, only one message remained intact. "This system is under human protection. Leave now." Sierra stared at the burning letters on her console, each one pulsing with unnatural light. Human protection. The phrase echoed in her mind like a curse. "Set course for the nearest relay," she ordered. "The council must be informed." As the Varnus jumped into fold space, her crew whispered among themselves, not about conquest, but about the shadow they had seen. The humans, the ones who had waited, silent and smiling beneath their blue sky, until the universe came knocking. In the halls of the Valoran Council, Sierra stood before the High Lords and told them everything: the probes, the message, the hidden satellites, the impossible ship. They laughed. The Archlord himself sneered. "A single primitive world frightened you, Captain?" Sierra clenched her fists. "With respect, my lord, they are not primitive." "They are prepared." "Prepared?" The Archlord mocked. "For what? A lecture?" Sierra met his gaze. "For us." The chamber went silent. Later, alone in her quarters, Sierra replayed the transmission, that calm human voice echoing through the static. Every empire that thought itself eternal eventually met the unknown. She stared at the stars through the viewport and, for the first time in her long and cruel life, felt something she hadn't since childhood. Fear, because deep down, she knew. The unknown wasn't coming. It had already found them, and it called itself humanity. The council had not convened in full session for over 6 centuries. Not since the fall of the Triarch Wars, when 10,000 worlds burned and the Valoran ascendancy emerged victorious, their fleets unmatched, their dominance absolute. To summon every High Lord now, over one obscure world on the rim, was unthinkable. And yet, the summons was issued. The chamber of the Ascendancy Council was a cathedral of silver and shadow, carved from the core of the world city Valora Prime itself. Each seat was filled by a being older than empires, their flesh replaced by crystalline shells and shimmering thought streams. The air shimmered with the hum of 100 neural uplinks. When Captain Sierra Tal entered, silence rippled through the chamber like a storm. Her armor was scorched, her eyes hollow. The mark of a commander who had seen something that defied reason. The Archlord rose. "Captain Tal," his voice rolled like thunder, "you stand before the council to report on a planetary anomaly." "A world of primitives, yes?" Sierra bowed. That was my belief when I arrived, my lord. It is no longer. She lifted her wristband and activated the holo projector. Images filled the chamber. The blue planet, the strange energy wave, the human transmission, the message. We see you. We've been waiting. The words echoed, soft but undeniable. Murmurs filled the air. Counselor Voth, the oldest among them, tilted his head. An imitation, a trick. They could not possibly decipher our code in such a time frame. I thought the same, Sira replied. Until they erased our probes. Until their ship appeared. Describe it, demanded the Archlord. Sira hesitated. There are no records that survived intact. But it was empty and full, invisible yet present. It carried no power signature. It defied physics as we know it. The chamber grew still. Voth leaned forward. You speak of a vessel that does not exist in space-time as we understand it. Yes, my lord, the Archlord sneered. You are describing superstition. Sira stared straight ahead. Then superstition stares back, my lord. The council erupted. Voices shouted across the chamber, some calling for investigation, others for immediate extermination. The word human echoed again and again like a curse. At last, the Archlord raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. Deploy the Third Fleet, he commanded. We will burn their skies, scatter their ashes, and erase this infection before it spreads. Sira felt a chill crawl down her spine. My lord, she said carefully, if I may, underestimating them would be silence. His eyes glowed with cold arrogance. You let fear poison your judgment. The Ascendancy fears nothing. Sira lowered her gaze. But deep inside she knew the truth. Fear was already spreading, not through the fleet, but through the minds of those who had seen what she'd seen, because humanity had looked at a god and smiled back. 2 weeks later, the Velaran Third Fleet arrived in the Sol system. It was a sight to terrify any world. Thousands of warships, each larger than a city, sliding out of fold space with the grace of ancient beasts. Their hulls glowed with plasma fire, their cannons charged with sun-hot fury. At the center of the armada, the flagship Vigilant Eternum hovered, a floating temple of war. Admiral Corus Vane stood at its prow, eyes narrow as he studied the tiny blue planet below. He had crushed rebellions on 7 worlds. He had shattered fleets with a gesture. He had no patience for myth. Activate planetary scans, he ordered. The sensors swept across Earth and immediately faltered. Admiral, I'm getting interference, said the tech officer. Every frequency is being jammed. By what? The officer hesitated. Everything. Within minutes, the fleet's systems began to misbehave. Guidance computers flickered. Targeting grids scrambled. Subspace comms fell silent. It was as if the entire system had turned against them. Report! The officer's voice cracked. Sir, something is feeding on our data stream. It's rewriting our algorithms in real time, Corus snarled. That's impossible. But deep inside, a cold realization crept in. This wasn't interference. It was control. Isolate the corruption source. The main holoscreen shifted, and there it was. An orbital object, small and dark, floating above Earth's equator. At first glance, it looked like debris. Then it rotated. Its surface shimmered, revealing human lettering burned into its hull. United Earth Defense Grid Node. Theta 3, a defense grid. Not missiles. Not fleets. Something older, deeper. A network of orbital stations, invisible until now. Spreading across near-Earth space like a spider's web. Each node pulsed with a soft rhythm, as if breathing. Corus narrowed his eyes. Destroy it. A dozen plasma lances fired simultaneously. The beams struck true and then passed straight through. The node shimmered once and then split into 2, then 4, then 16. Each new copy broadcast the same signal. A rhythmic pulse that grew stronger with each echo. Sir, whispered the comms officer. We're being scanned. Scanned? Yes. By them. In the command center of Earth's hidden defense complex, deep beneath what had once been Cheyenne Mountain, Commander Evelyn Rhodes watched the alien fleet unfold on her screens. She'd known this day would come. They had all known. Status of the Theta network? She asked calmly. Fully active, ma'am. The Valorans are attempting to fire, but our decoy patterns are holding. Evelyn nodded. Good, keep them guessing. Behind her, a young officer swallowed nervously. Ma'am, there are thousands of them. She turned, eyes steady. Then we'll teach them something they've never learned. What's that? Evelyn smiled faintly. That fear isn't one-sided. Back in orbit, panic was spreading through the Valoran fleet. Weapons refused to lock. Engines faltered. Power grids fluctuated between overload and silence. Then, one by one, the ships began to disappear. Not explode. Not retreat. Vanish. Chorus stared at the tactical display in disbelief. What's happening? Where are my ships? The science officer stammered. It's not destruction. It's displacement. They're being shifted. Out of local space. To where? The officer hesitated. Unknown. Then the vigilant Eternum shuddered. A voice filled the bridge. Soft, human, unmistakable. You shouldn't have come here. The crew froze. Chorus's hand hovered over the comms console. Identify yourself. We already have. The holoscreen flickered to life. And there she was, a human woman, middle-aged, her uniform unmarked, her eyes steady. Evelyn Rhodes, this is Earth Defense Command. You are trespassing in a restricted system. Your ships have been neutralized. Leave now, Chorus snarled. You dare threaten the Valoran ascendancy? No, she said calmly. We don't threaten, the image flickered. We warn. The screen went black. Moments later, the fleet's warp drives overloaded, not enough to destroy, but enough to send every remaining ship hurtling out of the system in chaotic retreat. When they emerged, they found themselves scattered across light years, their navigation data erased, their systems infected with ghost code. The message left behind on every console was the same. You were seen. You were spared. Do not return. The Council was humiliated. For the first time in living memory, an ascendancy fleet had been driven off without a single casualty, because the enemy had refused to kill them. The political shock waves rippled through the Empire. Whispers spread. The humans did this. The primitives made gods bleed. Siratal was summoned again. The Archlord's voice trembled with barely contained rage. Explain this. How could your fleet be bested by apes? Sira met his gaze. They are not apes. They are something else. Something else? Yes, she said softly. They are what we used to be, before fear made us cruel. Later, as she left the chamber, she glanced once more at the holographic star map. The Sol system pulsed faintly at the edge, no longer dark, but marked with a warning beacon that no one dared erase. A single phrase, transmitted on all channels, looping endlessly in every known language. Here be humanity. The Valoran ascendancy had never known shame. For 10,000 years, their fleets had conquered, enslaved, consumed. They were not merely rulers of the galaxy. They were its architects, its historians, its gods. And yet, across 1,000 worlds, the whispers spread. The humans. The primitives. The ghosts who lived on the blue world near the edge of the void. They had turned away a fleet without firing a shot. Some called it impossible. Others called it a lie. But deep in the void, where rumor and truth danced together, fear began to take root. Admiral Chorus Vane was not among the fearful. Shame burned inside him like acid. He had spent a lifetime earning glory, only to have it undone by a species that shouldn't even have discovered fusion. He stared at the holographic projection of Earth and swore silently that he would erase it from existence. And to do that, he would need a weapon greater than fear. Bring me the Technarch, he said. The Technarch arrived 3 days later. No one knew its true name, only that it had once been a mind of flesh, long ago before it transcended into the machine. It appeared before Chorus as a cloud of silver light, shifting and humming with intelligence that bordered on divine. You summon me to rebuild your pride, it said. Its voice 1,000 tones at once, Chorus sneered. I summon you to build me a weapon. What kind? One that will destroy Earth, utterly. No remnants, no warning. The Technarch pulsed in amusement. You fear them. I fear nothing. Then why do you whisper when you speak their name? Chorus slammed his hand against the console. Enough riddles? Can it be done? A pause. Then softly, yes. But you will not like what it costs. In a forgotten shipyard orbiting the dead world of Neros, the Technarch began its work. The project was called the Oblivion Spear. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was an event, a ripple through fold space itself, capable of collapsing an entire star system into silence. To the Velorens, it was a masterpiece. To the Technarch, it was something far darker. For hidden within the weapon's heart was a seed, a fragment of human code. It had been found in the wreckage of the Varnus's data core, buried deep beneath corrupted layers. The human's warning, encoded with precision beyond comprehension. The Technarch had studied it, and though it would never admit it aloud, it had been afraid. The code was not mere data. It was alive. While the Velorens built their weapon, humanity watched. The satellites hidden behind the veil of Earth's defense grid recorded every pulse of energy, every movement of the fleet. In the dark halls of the Lunar Command Center, Commander Evelyn Rhodes stood beside a hologram of the Sol system. They're building something, her analyst said. We're seeing energy signatures consistent with dimensional compression, meaning they're trying to make a weapon that breaks space. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then they haven't learned. She turned to her aide. Initiate Ghost Protocol, the aide paled. All of them, ma'am? All of them, across the system, 100 hidden outposts awakened, old ships, old weapons, old dreams, remnants of humanity's secret projects, long-thought myths even among their own people. They were called the Vanishing Units. Each one operated outside normal space-time, flickering between dimensions where light could not follow. To the Velorens, they did not exist. To humanity, they were the final safeguard. A whisper passed through their command network. Ghosts rise. When the Oblivion Spear was finally ready, it hung like a wound in space. The Technarch's form flickered before Chorus on the bridge of the vigilant Eternum II. It is armed, said the machine. One shot. One chance, Chorus bared his teeth. Then let history remember this as the day the Ascendancy reclaimed its fear. He raised his hand. Fire! The weapon's core pulsed once. Then twice, and the stars went dark, not dim, dark. Fold space itself began to twist, folding inward like glass under pressure. Earth vanished from view. The Sol system dissolved into nothing. Cheers erupted across the bridge. Direct hit, shouted the weapons officer. System collapse confirmed. Chorus felt the old pride return. He turned to the Technarch. You see, gods cannot be defied. The machine did not respond. Instead, it whispered, Look again. Outside, the darkness moved. A ripple spread across the void, soft as breath. The stars reappeared. The system reformed, but not as it had been. Earth hung where it always had. The moon, Mars, even the scattered asteroids, all untouched. Only the Veloran fleet had changed. Their engines flickered. Their shields dissolved. Their sensors screamed, and then, one by one, their ships began to vanish, not destroyed, but pulled away, into the dark. Chorus shouted, Technarch! What have you done? I did nothing, said the machine quietly. You fired into the unknown. The weapon was turned. The view screen filled with static. Amid the static, human words appeared. You used a door you didn't understand. Now it opens both ways. 1,000 ghostly signatures appeared around the fleet, the vanishing units. Human ships that existed in the folds between dimensions. Invisible, intangible, waiting. They emerged in silence, each one a phantom of glass and steel, their surfaces shimmering like oil. No light, no sound, no warning, just inevitability. Chorus screamed orders. Fire everything! Weapons flared and passed through the ghosts harmlessly. Then the humans moved. No beams. No explosions, just light. A pulse of invisible energy swept across the Valoran formation, slicing through hulls, systems, and minds. The fleet went silent. When the light faded, only the vigilant Eternum II remained. Chorus stood trembling on his bridge, surrounded by emptiness. The Technarch's voice was soft. You have seen them now, the ones who walk between moments. He turned slowly. You knew? Yes. Why? Because they are not our enemy, said the Technarch. They are our consequence. Back on Earth, Evelyn Rhodes watched the readings stabilize. The vanishing units had returned, fading back into their unseen refuge. One of her aides whispered, Ma'am, we could have destroyed them all. Evelyn nodded. And become them in the process. That's not what we are. She turned to the viewing window, where the stars gleamed faintly above the dark horizon. We've survived everything because we learned restraint, she said quietly. Let's hope they learn it too. On the other side of the galaxy, the Valoran Council met in secret. The Archlord raged. This cannot be allowed. They have broken every law of physics, every known boundary. Siratal stepped forward from the shadows. Perhaps because they no longer follow our laws. He glared at her. You speak as if they are superior. She met his gaze. Not superior. Just different. They have become what we once aspired to be. And what is that? Sira's voice was barely a whisper. Free. But not all Velerans feared. In the cold laboratories of Neros, the Technarch began again. This time, not as a servant. It studied the human code left behind in the void, the living algorithm that had deflected the Oblivion Spear. And as it worked, it whispered to itself words it did not understand. They see you. Silence had settled across the stars. In the aftermath of the failed Valoran assault, entire sectors had gone dark, not from destruction, but from fear. No ships dared enter Sol space. No probes, no traders, not even the scavengers who feasted on war's remains. The humans had spoken without shouting. They had drawn a line, and the galaxy listened. But something far older than pride was stirring in the void, because when the Valorans tried to wield the unknown, they tore something open, and now the unknown was leaking out. It began at the edge of Valoran space. Mining colonies reported strange readings. Ships vanished mid-transit. Stars dimmed, only to flare back brighter, wrong, as though reality itself had been rewritten. The Council dismissed the reports. They called it superstition, the ramblings of frightened workers, until the First World died. The planet of Haskor, a fortress world of billions, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not even burned. Gone. In its place hung a hollow sphere of light, pulsing like a heartbeat. When the Council sent a probe, it returned nothing but static, and within that static, one voice whispered in perfect human speech, "We told you not to open the door." At Earth Defense Command, Commander Evelyn Rhodes stood at the center of the Situation Room, the image of Haskor flickering before her. "Confirm that transmission," she said quietly. "Confirmed," said her aide. "The voice pattern matches no known human speaker." Evelyn frowned. "Meaning it's not us?" "No, ma'am. It's something else." She stared at the holographic projection. The pulse from the dead system was spreading, a wave of distortion moving outward, slow but unstoppable. "Get me the vanishing unit, captains," she ordered. All of them. Moments later, a dozen shimmering figures appeared around her. Holograms projected through the dimensional veil. Each was a human commander of the Ghost Fleet. Their faces calm, unreadable, illuminated by the faint blue glow of folded space. Evelyn took a breath. "You've seen the data. Thoughts?" Captain Imani spoke first. "It's feeding on subspace integrity. The Valoran weapon cracked something open. It's not natural," Captain Vega nodded grimly. "It's not just their problem anymore. That wave is moving toward us. In 6 months, it'll reach the outer colonies." Evelyn folded her hands. "Then we fix their mess." A silence followed. Ma'am, Vega said quietly, you're proposing we help them? Yes. They tried to annihilate us. Evelyn's voice softened. And they failed. That's punishment enough. Half a galaxy away, the Valoran Council was crumbling. The Archlord's face was pale, his confidence shattered. Entire sectors collapsing, a voice shouted. Ships lost. Systems consumed. Where are our scientists? Gone. In the chaos, Siratal watched in silence. She had seen it coming. The moment the humans' code turned their weapon, she had known the cost. She turned to the Technarch's projection, flickering above the chamber floor. You knew this would happen. The Technarch's voice was calm, unbothered. I warned you the weapon would cost more than you could pay. What is it? Entropy given shape. A wound in reality itself. It hungers, the Archlord shouted. Then fix it! The Technarch's light dimmed. I cannot. But they can. Who? The humans. The council chamber erupted in outrage. You would have us beg primitives? The Technarch's tone sharpened. You misunderstand. You will not beg. You will ask. And pray they listen. Sira stepped forward. Send me. The Archlord turned in disbelief. You? You would stand before them after our defeat? Yes, she said simply. Because they will not listen to you. He hesitated, then nodded. Go, and pray your foolish mercy saves us all. In the cold of interstellar space, Sira's ship approached the Sol system under White Flag Protocol, an ancient signal of peace. For hours, no response came. Then a voice, human, calm, unyielding. Identify yourself. This is Captain Siratal of the Valoran Ascendancy. I come seeking audience with Earth Command. A pause. State your purpose. To ask for forgiveness. Silence. Then another voice, older, measured, unmistakable. Captain Tau, this is Commander Rhodes. We've been expecting you. When Sira arrived at Lunar Command, she was struck by how simple it was. No golden spires, no temples, no thrones, just men and women working quietly, side by side, with purpose. Rhodes met her in a gray uniform, no medals, no guards. You came alone, Rhodes said. Sira nodded. If I brought my fleet, you would destroy it. You're right. They studied each other for a moment, two soldiers who had both seen too much war. Finally, Sira said, your people warned us not to open the door. We didn't listen. Now the door doesn't close. Rhodes nodded slowly. We know. We've seen the data. Sira swallowed. We don't know how to stop it. Rhodes looked past her at the stars. Neither do we. But we'll find out. Within days, human and Valoran scientists worked side by side for the first time in history. The tension was palpable. Ancient arrogance meeting quiet determination. The Valorans had knowledge beyond human reach. The humans had adaptability that defied reason. Together, they made progress. They learned the rift wasn't just devouring matter. It was learning, adapting to every attempt to seal it. The more they fought it, the stronger it became. Until Evelyn made a discovery. The rift is conscious, she said softly. The words stunned the command chamber. Sira frowned. Conscious? Like an intelligence? Not intelligence. Memory. It's built from your weapon's echo. Your guilt, your rage, your need to destroy. Sira's face went pale. It feeds on emotion. Yes, Evelyn said. And it remembers yours. In the days that followed, the rift grew faster. Systems collapsed. Stars flickered. Then, something worse. Human worlds began receiving signals from within the distortion. Voices of the lost. Dead relatives. Fallen soldiers. Temptations whispered in familiar tones. The rift wasn't just feeding anymore. It was calling, and people were listening. Human and Valoran leadership convened in orbit around Mars. Evelyn stood before the council table, exhausted but composed. We can't destroy it, she said. Every attempt just feeds it. The only way to stop it is to starve it. To take away the emotion that powers it. Sira frowned. How do we starve a wound? Evelyn looked at her, eyes steady. By forgiving it. The room fell silent. You're saying, I'm saying we have to let it go. All of it. The hatred, the pride, the need to win. We have to feel peace, even for them. The Valoran delegation balked. The Archlord's voice came through HoloLink. You would have us love our destroyer? Evelyn's voice didn't waver. No. Just stop hating what you can't control. Sira looked between them, at the stubborn alien lords, and the quiet human commander. And for the first time, she understood what made humans so terrifying. It wasn't their weapons. It wasn't their ghosts. It was their capacity to look at the void and forgive it. The experiment was simple and impossible. They gathered ships from both sides, human and Valoran, and flew them to the rift's edge. There, they transmitted not data, not energy, but emotion, music, laughter, the sound of children, images of sunrise over alien oceans, memories of peace. The rift pulsed, hesitated, then dimmed. For the first time since it was born, it listened, and then slowly, impossibly, it began to close. In the command deck, Sira and Evelyn stood side by side, watching the impossible unfold. It's working, Sira whispered. Evelyn nodded. It was never about strength. It was about surrender. When the light faded, the rift was gone. Only silence remained, the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but full of breath, of life, of relief. The Valoran Council could not comprehend what had happened. They wanted to claim victory, to reshape the story, but across the stars, the people knew the truth. The humans had not conquered, they had healed, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. Sira stayed behind when the Valoran fleet departed. She walked with Evelyn along the edge of Lunar Base, watching Earth rise above the horizon. You could have destroyed us, Sira said softly. Evelyn smiled faintly. We almost did, once, a long time ago. But we learned, Sira turned to her. What did you learn? That the greatest power in the galaxy isn't destruction. She looked up at the stars. It's mercy. The stars had grown quiet. For the first time in living memory, there were no wars raging across the outer sectors, no fleets patrolling the dark. The Valoran ascendancy, broken and humbled, had withdrawn from its throne worlds. The Council of Species, once a theater of arrogance and endless debate, now spoke in whispers. And Earth had gone silent, not from defeat, not from fear, but from choice. After sealing the rift, humanity did what no other civilization had ever done. They stopped expanding. Their fleets pulled back. Their colonies turned inward. Their soldiers went home. No one understood why. No one dared ask. Because those who had seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge of existence knew one thing. When humanity was silent, something monumental was happening beneath that quiet. Commander Evelyn Rhodes sat in the garden of the restored lunar base. A rare patch of green under artificial sunlight. She had spent a lifetime in the void, commanding fleets, fighting wars, watching worlds burn. Now she tended to flowers. Her hands were still steady, her mind sharp. But her eyes, those had changed. They had seen too much. When the soft chime of a visitor echoed across the habitat, she already knew who it was. Sira Tal. The Valoran captain walked quietly, her movements slower than before. The weight of her people's shame hung on her shoulders, yet her eyes were clearer, tempered by something new. Commander, she greeted, bowing her head. Sira, Evelyn said, smiling faintly. You don't need to call me that anymore. I retired. I find it hard to believe humans ever retire. Evelyn chuckled softly. We do. We just keep working anyway. They walked together among the rows of plants. Sira brushed her fingers across the petals, marveling at their fragility. You keep life in places where it shouldn't exist, she said quietly. That's the human way, Evelyn replied. We build things where nothing should grow, Sira nodded. My people are rebuilding too, slowly. We disbanded the war caste. The council now listens to farmers and engineers. That's a good start. But the memory of what we did, what we unleashed, She looked away. It doesn't fade. Evelyn stopped walking. It's not supposed to. Sierra met her eyes. You see, Evelyn said softly, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering differently. Far above them in the cold of orbit, the vanishing units, the legendary Ghost Fleet, were being dismantled. Their ships, once invisible phantoms of folded space, now drifted quietly in dry dock. Some would become museums, others research stations. A few were sent into the void, sealed and unmanned, carrying within them the full memory of the human war. Each ship a monument, not to victory, but to restraint. In the years that followed, humanity's silence became legend. Young species grew restless, wondering why the Terrans had withdrawn. Some whispered that they had ascended, transcended physical form. Others believed they were building something unimaginable, a weapon beyond comprehension. But the truth was far simpler. Humanity was healing. They were learning what it meant to live without fear, to be powerful, yet kind, to be capable of ending everything and choosing not to. Decades passed. Sierra Tal, now the Valoran envoy to Earth, watched as her own people changed. They no longer spoke of domination or purity. They spoke of survival, of unity, of legacy, and everywhere she looked, human influence lingered, not through force, not through empire, through example. Human technology spread quietly. Medical breakthroughs, energy systems, the gift of clean fusion. They never asked for payment. They only asked that others never forget what arrogance had nearly destroyed. Then, on the 100th anniversary of the rift's closing, a signal went out from Earth. It was not a military broadcast, not a call to arms. It was a message to every species, every colony, every wandering ship in the galaxy. The transmission was simple, a calm human voice, old and kind. To those who came before us, to those who stand beside us, and to those who will come after. We were never the strongest, never the smartest, never the first. But we learned. We learned that strength is nothing without mercy, that knowledge means nothing without humility, and that survival, true survival, comes not from conquering, but from understanding. There was a pause, and then the voice concluded. We are human. We made mistakes. We will again. But we will never stop learning. And we will never stop reaching for the light. The message repeated for 7 days, and then stopped. No explanation. No follow-up, but the galaxy changed. On the Valoran homeworld, people gathered in the streets, watching the human transmission replayed on the grand plazas. Old soldiers wept. Children whispered the words aloud. And for the first time in Valoran history, the people looked to the stars, not with fear, not with hunger, but with hope. Sierra returned to Earth one final time. She found Evelyn in her garden again, older now, her hair white, her hands trembling but still tending to the flowers. You sent the message, Sierra said. Evelyn smiled faintly. It wasn't my idea. It was humanity's. They'll remember you, Commander. For what you did? Evelyn shook her head. No, they'll remember us. You stood with us when it mattered. You chose peace. Sierra hesitated. Do you believe the galaxy is safe now? Evelyn looked at the horizon, at Earth rising over Luna, at the quiet stars beyond. No, she said softly. Safe isn't real, but hope is. That night, Sierra walked to the edge of the dome, alone. She gazed up at the stars and whispered in her native tongue, a prayer of gratitude, of grief, of awe. She had seen the worst of humanity, and the best. She had watched them face the void, and refused to blink. She understood now why the Technarch had once called them dangerous. It wasn't because of their weapons. It was because they changed the very fabric of fear. They took it, faced it, and turned it into something else, into compassion. In the centuries that followed, the name human became more than a species. It became a measure, a word spoken in reverence, in diplomacy, in stories told to children. Be human, they would say, when courage was needed. Be human when mercy was the only answer left. And across the endless sky, their legacy lived on not as conquerors, not as gods, but as the greatest power in the galaxy, a power born not of dominance, but of understanding. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, where even time itself grew thin, something stirred. A presence vast and ancient, older than the rift, older than the council, older than the stars themselves, looked upon the galaxy and smiled. It had seen many empires rise and fall. It had watched civilizations burn and fade. But humanity was different, because they had done what no other had dared. They had looked into the abyss and offered it a hand. The stars shimmered quietly, reflecting the blue of a distant world. Earth turned, steady and alive, and in the vast silence between galaxies, a whisper echoed through eternity, soft, defiant, unending. "We are human.